July, Asiana Flight 214 left Seoul bound for San Francisco, but crashed in the final moments of that flight. Two teenagers from China were killed. A third died after she was run over by rescue vehicles on the runway. Nearly a year later, U.S. officials went public on Tuesday with what they've determined as the cause of that crash. And CCTV's Jim Spellman joins us now from the newsroom. And Jim, pilot error was suspected from the very beginning. Is that what they found?
The report does indeed point to pilot error, stopping short of calling the flight crew incompetent, but determining that the pilots had an over-reliance on the plane's automation systems. On top of that, it says the response on the ground was chaotic and poorly managed.
After a nearly year-long investigation, the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board has determined what caused Asiana Flight 214 to crash at San Francisco International Airport last summer.
They flew the aircraft too low and too slow and collided with the seawall at the end of the run.
4 seconds later, the pilot monitoring advanced the thrust levers, followed by stick shaker activation and a verbal call to go around. These actions were too late, and the main gear and the underside of the aft fuselage struck the seawall,
sending the plane hurtling end over end. The NTSB says the flight crew didn't fully understand the plane's complex automation system and switched off an autopilot feature that could have prevented the crash.
The more complex automation becomes, the more challenging it is to ensure that the pilots adequately understand it. In this instance, the flight crew over-relied on automated systems that they did not fully understand.
3 teenage girls from China died. Wang Lingjia at the scene and Liu Yipeng days later at the hospital. Ye Mengyuan was killed on the runway when she was run over by rescue vehicles. The report blames miscommunication by crews on the ground for Ye's death. But the antennae safe
tragic more than years of fatalities. Safety advances such as seats that can withstand 16 times the force of gravity and fire-blocking materials gave the cabin crew the time and the opportunity to evacuate the airplane.
The report calls for better pilot training and more coordination of rescue crews on the ground.
The report also reveals that 2 of the teenagers who died were not wearing seatbelts and were thrown from the plane. The NTSB says that if they had been wearing their seatbelts, they likely would have survived the crash, Mike.
Jim, tell us more about the recommendations the NTSB is making.
That really is the main reason why they conduct these investigations, so that won't happen again. They want these automation systems on the 777 to be re-examined to determine if they're too complicated and to check and see if the training that the pilots are receiving is effective. They say the pilots in this case thought they were operating the system correctly, so they want to see if there is something in the training that can be improved. On the ground, they want to see closer coordination between the airport-based rescue crews and the local fire departments that poured in to help. They praised the reaction of these crews, who were able to quickly triage about 300 people and move them away from the wreckage, but they want to avoid ever again making a mistake like running over this young woman who was thrown from the plane, Mike.
And tragic. Jim Spellman, live for us. Thank you. Terror.